Hello everyone and welcome back to Of Bricks and Dragons. Today we're going to try and go through as fast as I kind of can here. I don't want to make this too long of a video, but we're going to see how well we can do. As you can see, I pulled out all of my Action Fleet ships here, and some of them are very dusty, other ones are perfectly fine. We'll kick off the dust and we'll kind of go through them all here just for fun. And this will kind of conclude this week's just kind of looking back at a lot of the Action Fleet ships. Some of the differences, I do have a newer tie in comparison to the old tie, so we will be able to get to see a little bit of the differences here. A lot of these ships are from way back when they had originally done them, and I do have two offshoots here that are not Star Wars. They're actually Battlestar Galactica, so if you're a fan of that, I have them, and there's a reason why I have them, and I'll let you know when we get to that point. So first of all, let's kind of start off here. We got our ships sitting right in front of us, and we'll kind of go from here. Now, please excuse me, I know I'm going to mess this one up because I know I remember the name somewhat from... I used to remember the name. Let's put it that way. I don't remember the name anymore, and I could have looked it up, but just trying to get this knocked out here. But I do forget the name of this. This was from Shadows of the Empire. It was right there at the tip of my tongue, and I just couldn't remember. So we do have a cockpit that pulls out, so we had to figure that one in there. The nice thing was, we had kind of wings that could kind of fan out here, so as we were doing this. But if you look at the back side, we had like extra thrusters on here. We have the main thrusters, a little back up here, maybe that's the hyperdrive, however you want to work it. The cannons did rotate, so we could actually kind of rotate the cannons a little bit, but these were kind of thrusters. So if you're trying to get that extra maneuverability, you could actually kind of flare that up, and then you could spin one way or the other. That was kind of the idea that I believe in this. There was no landing gear, no nothing, and you'll notice this little design here. I don't know how well you can see it on this one. You'll find it on a lot of them. This has a certain hexagonal hole here, and that was meant... and I don't have very many of them. I think this one's too small. We had holders. Now this was for a smaller ship, but we had holes in there so that way we could kind of prop this up. That was for a smaller ship that I don't have, and I don't have one of the correct size anymore. Just it got lost somewhere along the way here. Like I said, I've had these for many years. Usually if I was going to land this, I would always land it here because this is how I believe this had landed. When we look at the wingtips, it does look like there are little feet here. So when I had landed it, I had always landed like here. I thought it was a neat design when I had picked it up, so of course I picked it up because it was Star Wars, and I was looking for anything and everything for ships. I always love having a variety of different types of ships to put out for the guys to kind of interact with or whatever else. So that's where we start off here. Just kind of set things off to the side. And of course, we have Boba Fett's ship here, the ever so famous. Unfortunately, they don't really like the name that it originally had, so I'm not going to say it. Everybody that remembers it knows the name. It's just not a very popular thing to say today. It wasn't popular way back then, but it was still the whole idea of this is the type of character we were dealing with. And of course, we have Frozen in Carbonite, we have Han Solo. This does open up, so you could actually put the Han Solo figure inside like I do. So you could actually have them get de-thawed or whatever, and that was the idea. I always liked that. well, all of these, I have not opened up or done anything with in many years. If you were to see the amount of dust on top of the box, it would be something to laugh at. There is quite a bit of dust and a couple dust bunnies. The cockpit does open up, so we could put Boba Fett in here. I don't know if they ever came out with a recolor of this for Jango Fett, but if they did, it's just one I never picked up or one I ever got around here. This was, one of the times when all these came out. It was at a time where I think I said in the last episode, we really didn't have all the Amazon, ship to home stuff that what we're so accustomed to today. So keep in mind, there were fighters and ships and that I was just willing to throw my money at if I could have gotten it, but it just was not something I could have gotten at the time. So we had some different TIE fighters that we just didn't have in my area. Being in Wisconsin here, I don't know why it didn't show up. Maybe it was in some other areas in Wisconsin. I just couldn't tell you. I just know it wasn't in my area, and I remember going up to Toys R Us quite often, and I never found them. They never had them. So it just is what it is. And of course, we have some pretty nice detail. We have a thruster here as well as these. The wings actually kind of flip for the landing. For landing like this, or up here for flight. This is always considered an odd ship just for the fact of we land here, and this, when you look at the stats in game, it doesn't always quite jive with how it's supposed to be. Because it seems like there should be 3 levels or whatever here. Really, you look at it, there's just not much room here. And the fact that this cockpit kind of rotates, it's kind of a wonky idea. Interesting. Made the character a little bit more famous for just the design of things being just out there. But the feasibility, I just don't know. But just to keep in mind, this is all fantasy. You can have all the fun in the world. The reality of things just can go right out the window. It doesn't matter. If it's something you enjoy and all that, go with it. That's the big thing. All right. So we do have that. There's no extra missile pods, no nothing. If they did a Jango Fett one, I'm sure that they would have had a missile launcher that could have maybe slid out here or whatever. Because I do remember I had the 3 3/4 inch figure scale version of these, and I had both of them, the original Boba Fett and the Jango Fett one, and the differences between them. Whatever possessed me to get rid of them, I just don't know, but I did. It's all on me. All right, so we kind of precluded to this earlier in the last episode, looking at this, and here we are. So the Delta 7. This is the upgraded version of the Delta 7 because we have the droid in the cockpit, or right in front of the cockpit, instead of being offset here. The cockpit does open up, and I'm trying to remember exactly how far back that goes because it's been a while. Because this, if you remember in the movie, this opened up and it was actually some storage in there. So we do have Obi-Wan in here in the cockpit. This kind of opens up. There's not much else to this. We do have the landing gear that does fold down. And it folds down pretty nice. There's one extra piece to this, and this is the reason why I had picked this up. We do have the hyperdrive ring. So we can close all this up, and we can actually dock this. So it flips over, and we actually just kind of, it snaps in there a little bit. And of course then I'm trying to do this, and I'm always afraid I'm going to mess this up because it sits in there very tight. And as you can see, we have a little notch here, and that fits right here just past the landing gear. So that is the right side. We're just trying to fit it in there and get it to kind of snap in. And of course now I'm going to be afraid of maybe messing this up. There we go. Okay, now it's in there, won't come off. So now you can actually have them fly in hyperspace. So pretty nice. This is the reason why I got it, is because it did have the hyperdrive ring. I thought that was pretty cool. So I have gotten that one. All right. Now this one's actually metal. I don't know if this is going to be a proper size to it or not, but this is the droid Delta Starfighter, I believe it is, because it's got the 3 of them, or Tri-Fighter or something, and it does have the missiles here. So if you remember in the movie, here's the main blasters. It also has a 3rd one here, or 4th one. 1, 2, 3. It's got that one plus the missiles, and then they had those little droids that were actually skittering around on Obi-Wan's starfighter. And again, we had that little piece in here, so we could actually have it sitting on there. I don't think this is the right size. Actually, I think this is. So that's how that would actually sit. So if you want to kind of fly it back and forth or whatever, there you are. So at least I got one of them. All right. There's nothing really to take apart here or flare out. It just is what it is. It was an interesting concept. I do kind of like this. The Rebellion era is always going to be probably about my most favorite time to play in, but I really did like the idea of the Clone Wars. They have the Jedi fighting against all these droids and all that. To me, it kind of made a little bit more sense because they're not taking the actual life of sentient beings as much. And then, of course, if you remember this is where we start our adventure with R2 and 3PO, and that's who had come with this. And of course, I don't have them in here, but this was meant to hold up to 6 people. So we do have a nice cavernous area here that you could actually put a bunch of figures in there, and then they could actually eject out, and we go from there. And again, it's not much, and a lot of these earlier fighters, they didn't have a lot. But I don't think any of us were really looking for a lot of extra stuff. The paint looks good. The detail here looks good. I mean, we have the little brake thrusters. We have a little viewport up on top. We have the other little thrusters on the back here to kind of help guide it. And the main thrusters to get it as far away from the ship before the ship blew up. So, it's not like there's a lot of extra stuff here to open up and go through everything. And of course, we do have that little spot so I could put it up and they could be flying through the air. But just being what it is, it was always enough. It didn't need a lot of extra stuff. And then we have an MMT here, and I'm going to quickly dust this off just a little bit. I got a paintbrush to try to help dust it off here. Okay, so we do have some landing gear here. Oops, if I can get it right. So if you want this to just kind of sit here and not roll, otherwise, as you can see, we had wheels on the back. So if I want this to be able to roll, I can have this roll nicely. So this opens up, and then we have a lever in the back that we could push, and as you can see, we had a spot for 2 droids. That's all we had, is just 2 droids. But the reality was it would come out, open up, and then just drop all these droids out. I forget what the MMT stood for. I think it's like multi... or massive or something. Transport. That the T is transport. I just can't think of the first 2 M's, what it was. And of course we do have the cannons here, and these do kind of go back and forth. So they are ball turrets, and we can actually move them. But beyond that, there's not much here. The fact that we can either have it rolling around or whatever. And again, for me, for doing a role-playing game, it's something I could throw out and they can say, okay, well, we got this big massive tank here, transport. So, all right, we're going to set that off to the side. All right, we're going to start off with our TIE fighters and that. So, looking just at our basic TIE fighter. So this is the original one, and this is a new one. So you get to see the differences that they did. Originally, we had the bigger cockpit in there, and the wings were just a little bit bigger. They were actually a little bit more robust than what we have today. And of course, this opens up, so you can get the pilot inside or take the pilot out. The other thing here is, if I do this right, and I think, yes, it does, we have the ability to actually take your ion drive. This is actually the ion drive, and we could take that off. So one of the beautiful things, and this is done in some of the schematics, so if they ever had to actively work on this, here's your engine ports for your ion drive. So you could actually slide that off, take it out, work on it, put it back in, or you could have a spare one, and then you could take this out, work on that, put the spare one in, and you could just keep going. Nice, easy turnaround. These are the reasons why the Empire had really kind of gone with the TIEs. Very few moving parts. No, they didn't have shields, but they were used in mass. Okay, a cheap, effective fighter in group tactics. It wasn't fancy. It didn't, it was a simple, just robust enough fighter, and the fact that for the most part they were dealing with just police actions afterwards. And of course, when we look at the upgraded version, now we can open this up, and we have our TIE pilot in here, and he has a lot less room than what the original had. But what we did lose is I can't take that out. I can flop that down like I'm working on things, but I can't slide that out. That does not slide out anymore. And these are done thinner than what they had originally done. I mean, this, I could set it in here. Now, the way you could play this off is, because as they had worked on this, this is the TIE IN, not the original TIE, TIE fighter, twin ion engine. That's all it really was at the very beginning. This is the TIE IN. So this was the TIE Interceptor, original Interceptor model of it. The original only had a single blaster cannon in the nose. Now we have a dual blaster cannon in the nose. And of course this has got a dual here as well. You could almost say that this is a progressive thing because it actually had curved wings originally. So this could be a upgraded model, and then they made it a little bit more robust here. You could look at it in that regard to say they went from the original TIE to an early TIE IN, and this could be a TIE IN Mark II or something like that. You could always just play it off like that as we get things better. I mean, when we look at a lot of the fighter jets that we have today, because I'm here in the States, if you look at just the regular shooters, I'm thinking of the Navy's what is now starting to be an aged fighter jet, and I can't think of the name of it. It was a Tomcat. It was supposed to be the Tomcat's replacement, but it didn't fully replace the Tomcat. Anyways, F-18 Hornet. They're currently on the F-18 Super Hornet. So for that very reason of, as things get upgraded, the wings are bigger. So they can hold more fuel, they can hold more ordnances and stuff like that. So that's where I was kind of going with that. And you could look at it in the same progression as that. And again, now we have the straight TIE Interceptor. So the wings are sleek, streamlined. the solar panels had gotten better. That was the storyline about it. We actually have cannons on the inside here. So we have the ports here that they could have had the cannons because they're still using that same module, but the actual laser cannons or blaster cannons are right here. So that's where we have things. Now let's see. One of these, no, I think it's this one. It is. Aha. I do remember. Okay. So I'm going to aim this one up at you so you can see this hopefully, and then you can see this one. And you can see a little difference here. On the back, it actually has a gear, so I can widen this out a little bit. And as you can see, we have this piece that's out, and it's sitting right in here right now. It's done so that way if they needed to try and collect more solar energy or whatever from whatever they're doing, they could do that. So that was one of the things, and you know, I never really looked at it in that regard or anything else, but that's one of the things that they had kind of done. So I can twist that back in, and that just ratchets us back in. And of course we could put our pilot in here, and in comparison to that newer one, we do have a little bit more room in here. Not that you're going to get two people in here room, but you do have a little bit more room. But one of the things you'll notice, and I've tried to do this with Legos as well, I like to get, if I can, like 2 of these. Now I'm hoping that at some point I get the room, I can actually build a nice starport, and I could actually have 2 TIE fighters, 2 X-Wings, stuff like that. So it just looks nice and cool. If that never happens, it never happens, but that's my hope. And I'm really hoping that I can work that out, but time will tell. Okay, and then we get to the TIE Bomber. So, the TIE Bomber does actually have, as I open this up, and it does have the shooter in here. So that's been sitting in there for quite a while. I don't think I have it. No, it's all the way in. Okay, I'm gonna get that there. There it is. Now it shoots out. And then you just pull this down, load it back up, if I can get it in there correctly. There we are. And then I can shoot it at something if I wanted to, which I don't typically shoot this stuff. I was kind of surprised to see that that's in there. So there's 2 versions of this. In all reality, this is the bomber, and then there was another version where they took the bomber off, they left this open, and then they turned this into a transport. So it was a TIE transport, so they could transport, say, like six personnel from one ship to another without having a problem. And then this slides back, and then we get to our cockpit. So still very basic, very bare bones way of doing things. And then here's our engine. So that's our engine compartment. So if you wanted to work on things, you know, it gave us a little extra play. Not as basic as some of the other ones. And it still rests right on the wings. So, but it's still an interesting setup the way that's done. And then of course we have Vader's TIE X1. And it's considered the TIE X1 because it was supposed to have a ×1 hyperdrive in here. Let's see, I'm trying to remember if it's that one or if it's this one. There it is. And as you can see, I need to dust this. It's not supposed to be that color, exactly that color, although it does look faded to me as well. I don't know who's worse, me or the bunnies. Like I said, this has been sitting in a box, so it is funny. And the box has got a lot of dust balls on top. Alright. Here we go. Oh, it looks a little cleaner. It's still kind of... It's got a dingy look to it. I got dust all over the place. But again, now it gives us an opportunity to, as a toy to have someone kind of working on that. So it's kind of neat and cool. Now as we look at this, we do have the twin cannons right here. This was one of the coolest things, having this kind of arced in here. And I do have, I believe it is Vader himself in there. If I can get him out. Come on, Vader. Come on. There he is. With his cape, and really it's his cape that was hanging him up here. But we could have Vader, because we know him as someone that did happen to like tinkering with things. If you watch all 6 movies, you learn that. Alright, so I can't get him to stand. You learn that as Anakin, he loved to tinker with things, and even though it was kind of a, no, you shouldn't take possession of certain things or whatever, he loved to have possession of, he wanted his own fighter, something he could tinker with. Keeps his mind kind of going. So I can understand that a little bit myself. I'm going to try and get him in here. There we go. And we'll set him off to the side. Now, we have 1 Sentinel, and then we have 2 Lambda shuttles. But we also have an AT-AT walker. So let's get the walker first. We'll bring all 3 of them, or all 4 of them up. And then we'll kind of look at the walker here. Alright. So the walker, even though it's supposed to have troop transport in the side, we do have a little bit of an opening here. So we can kind of open that up a little bit. And really it's just a bridge. This is more of the look of what you would kind of expect if you were Return of the Jedi. So they had that platform here, so we could actually have this, and then you could have people going back and forth. So that was the idea on this one. But really, you had people sitting up here, and then you had some speeder bikes and some other stuff down here. We have the main cannons. We have some cannons here. These, I believe, were more main cannons. And then you had enough room to get 1 figure on the inside. And as you can tell, this is offset, so you really don't have a lot you can do here. I can't just kind of, I can kind of bend it to go forward here, but it really doesn't want to, I can't just switch these around. It's really not meant to do that. It's really meant to have our right side here on the inside, and our left side is on the outside. And then, like I said, I don't know, I just can't remember, because this is how many years ago, if we actually had a playset for Return of the Jedi to have something sit here. I just don't remember if we did or not. If we did, it was something I just never found and we never got. We do have a little bit of movement back and forth with the head. Not much though. So, but still, it was pretty cool. Alright, so we'll hit our Lambda shuttle, and of course, just like all the other ones, we can kind of raise and lower the landing gear. Landing gear just folds up in here. So as you can tell, if the landing gear folds up in here, that means that we don't have any use of any of that cargo space that would be available. They have a newer one, if you can find it. My local Walmart here, my little Walmart, they clearanced it out for $15. I think these were going for $25. It was easily twice as big as this. And I was kind of hemming and hawing about it. Like, nah, should I or shouldn't I? I've got a Lego one. I don't think I really need this anymore. I've got Lego ships. I've got enough Lego ships now. I don't think I really need to keep these anymore. I will. And maybe someday I might get silly in the head and decide that, yeah, I guess I don't need the toys anymore. But this one was kind of interesting because we actually had enough room. We could put 2 figures in here, side by side. And you can see that we have a stormtrooper sitting here, and we do have enough room for a second one. So that was really interesting out of these little ones. So Um, kind of fun and interesting. Now, same thing with our Sentinel class. So I can drop that down, our legs fold up, and our front landing gear folds up. Now, the reality was this actually had 4 landing gear, not the 3. Because this was a much bigger shuttle. So it actually had 4 landing gears. So whether you wanted to call those here, but you also had 2 in the front, not the 1. And then it actually had a ramp that came down on the side. Now here, this really is not much of storage at all. This is very kind of silly for storage, but it gives us a little something here. You know, for a play set or whatever, it really didn't add all that much, but it was something. They did give us something here. And then our cannon, we have a cannon here which really should be up higher, but it's not. I can push that down and I can close that and it stays out of the way. Underneath, I could actually push that up, which flips that up, and that's as high as it goes, and then I can turn it and say that I'm shooting forward or wherever. Obviously you can see in the toy version that cannon would be shooting right in the back here, but our imagination can do whatever. You know, we can fill in the gaps with our imagination here. And then as I open this up, again we have enough room for 2 pilots. So kind of a simple look at it. I mean, you can see that we have cannons on the side here, much like how we have these, and these are actually able to rotate. This was a bigger troop transport than what our Lambda shuttle was. Our Lambda shuttle was more of an executive transport. This was a massive troop transport. So that's the differences between them. Now, whether the Lambda came out first and then we got the Sentinel, I don't really remember. And you could say it in that regard that, you know, we started using this as our troop transport because I think you could get, I want to say I think you were able to get 12 troops in here and 24 in here. That's what I kind of want to say, but I'm not going to say I'm saying this exactly. All right, so as we go on to our Rebellion side, I'm going to pull these out first, and then we'll take a look at these. Now these are 2 different colors, so obviously they had done another one somewhere along the lines, and we went from there. Now this was for a Theed play set, which I don't know what I ever did with. So this actually kind of sat in there, and then you could actually poke like an R2 or an R series droid through there, which I always thought was just kind of odd how this is shaped, because it's like you can get the head, but really you look at it, you don't have enough room for the legs. The other thing is these got charged, so it's almost like an early Tesla, right? They would actually get parked, and then this would actually plug in to the plasma charging station, so it would actually charge the plasma in there. Now here is the full fighter of it, so the cockpit slides forward, and it looks like we have Anakin in there, little Anakin, and we do have R2 here. So we'll slide that back. That's where our blasters were, and underneath is our photon torpedo, or our plasma torpedo. Okay, and then we had landing gear, and these fold up very nicely, and it has that very elegant kind of Nabooian landing gear here. You know, just these little struts, just like what we had on the Naboo Queen's yacht. You know, those very fancy kind of struts here that they look very ornate and not as rugged and that as you would find in a lot of the other stuff. So, you know, let's see. Oh, there's R2 right here. So if I wanted to say he was out, I could do that, and then underneath here, I can pop that up, and his head sticks up here. So, and there we are. Still, it was a slick fighter. Nice idea. I don't, you know, I can't say I'd ever knock it down, because it is a very interesting idea. All right, now we have the Rebel snow speeders. There are harpoons in the back. I like when we get some different colors here. I think that's always really nice. And we have one landing gear. So when you look at these, there's only one landing gear. Otherwise, it sits right here on the struts. So, we have our nice massive cannons here, which obviously, if you remember from the movie, they just did not do enough damage. And we have the 2 seats here. So you have your pilot and your rear gunner. And the same thing here. Although this is upgraded a little bit more. Now these stickers all came pre-done because obviously that's how they had done them. That would be kind of a pain as a, I think even as an adult trying to get those stickers in there. Just trying to fit them in there just right. But looking at it, it's the same mold between the two of them. I know that this was a newer version. You know, this is newer. But otherwise, we do have our air brakes. So if you're trying to slow down or if you're trying to turn or whatever else and you want to have those up, here's our air brakes. So that kind of helps us. But still, it's really nice. I always like to think when we were doing a lot of our Star Wars early on that we were always kind of based on a Hoth. And we would get our missions, like they were there for quite a while, and we were just kind of going back and forth. All right. So as we go through our progression, then we have our Y-Wing, and I only have one of these. We have our astromech droid right here, and this is all done. Let me get our paintbrush here. Oh, all that dust. Like I said, I mean, it's, you know, stuff sits here for years. Oh, and I lost R2. Okay. So we have an R2 droid. Sits very nicely in here. And then depending on what model you have, now this is a long scout. So with a long scout, we only have one pilot. Okay? There's no room for a second pilot. In a standard Y-Wing, there would be room for a second pilot. So, just kind of the differences between them. If you watch the Clone Wars at all, they do have Ahsoka sitting back here in the gunner seat, and it's got like a little bubble spot up there or whatever. Typically, they would just say, these are, I believe, these are the ion cannons, those are the main cannons, and of course, this was a bomber. This was meant to be an attack bomber. So, it did have the bomb bays in here. Or let's see, I think what they had is the concussion. Is either the concussion missiles or the photon torpedoes. But either way, this was a big standard for the Rebel Alliance to start with. And then they had kind of moved on to getting our X-Wings and all that stuff. They had hit the Z95s, and then they got the X-Wings after that. I don't have any Z95s. So I did like this because, you know, I was always a support character. And I've always been that. So I always like the idea of having a second seat in there. And then we have our X-Wings. Now I'm just going to grab one of these. Let's see, I got 3 of them, and I think there is a little difference between them. Okay, because this one over here, that's a red 5. Now this is a red 2, and this is a red 2. So I think red 2 was wedge. So this would actually be, I think this is actually Wedge Antilles. And of course, I'm not going to remember exactly. Come on. All right. You know, looking at this, I want to say this is wedge. No, I'm not going to be able to tell very well on this either. But I think red 2 was Wedge Antilles. And of course we got an astromech droid in here, which does come out. So you could change that out with a different one if you wanted, if you had a different one. The wings do open. Oh, come on. There they are. Now I heard a click. To me, it just seems like there should be something somewhere to kind of help me open them, but I guess just my thumb in there. And the landing gear, which I just kind of put up. You know, it has that very nice look to it. This to me is that very big iconic ship. And of course, you know, we have our regular X-wing, and there was supposed to be a trainer version of this, so it would have been a little bit a little more elongated nose here, so that way you could have a jump seat in there. But the reason why they had chose what they had chosen was, if you kind of remember, Luke Skywalker had flown, what the heck was it, the Skyhopper. And this was using the same controls as a Skyhopper. So if you knew one of those as a civilian, you could fly this as a military pilot. So, you know, just some of the silliness in the background of how they wrote a lot of that stuff up. And of course, then you have the A-Wing. Now the A-Wing was always really fun because it was a small little fast fighter. And even with this, there was supposed to be different variants of that as well. The original one, which the cockpit comes up, and we have our pilot in here. If I can keep that closed. This actually has the 2 cannons, and in the nose, it was supposed to have a sensor jammer, trying to help keep enemy fighters from getting sensor locks and all that stuff for like the missiles or whatever else. Now then they had some different variations of this where instead of having the sensor jammer, they actually had a torpedo launcher. There's other ones that they had like a trainer version, so this was elongated a little bit more. They went through the whole gambit because this being different from our X-Wing, they had to try and help teach people how to fly these. And of course, they were using these because they're so small, they're agile. You know, it just made a little bit of sense. And it makes sense in my mind to sit here and say, just like what they did with the TIE Fighter. You know, we can modify, we can change this, we can change that. They did the same thing with this, trying to make it that all-around type fighter. It might be a little variant here, a little variant there, but if you got people trained on this, then you could train them on everything else. All right, then later on we got our B-Wing, and the cockpit does actually rotate. So when they gave us this, they did actually give us a rotating cockpit. And the figure on here, I do believe, was green, had a green uniform instead of the nice orange and white. And we can actually raise these up. And we have one landing gear piece, which is right there. And I can do that, and we can just kind of fly through the air, or I can fly anywhere around. And in the game, in the old West End game series, they talk about if that your module here for turning, the gyroscope, if that got damaged, because the pilots were used to having this thing flying around, now you got a little on the dizzy side trying to do that same thing. you actually had a little negative penalty or whatever to actually fly here. And then last but not least for today, I have two other ones, but I'm not going to show those because those are also Transformers, and that's a whole different line. So last but not least, here we have an E-Wing. Now, if you notice, I have some string here because I used to try and hang these up, and that string is still sitting there. Let's see. I don't have anything to cut it with. Nope. I got a scissors right here. If it's not hanging up, I guess I don't really need that string there. So we'll get the string off of there. Okay, here we are. Now the only funky part about this is this cannon. So as the cockpit would come up, this was hinged and the barrel of the cannon was actually supposed to go up. So in this version, the whole thing goes up. So it's a different take on it. Personally, I thought if you had it offset or just set inside here, that would make a little bit more sense. But that's just my looking at it compared to when they were designing it. This in essence was really a cheap alternative really to the X-Wing. And we have our astromech droid who gets put all the way inside here. So let me see here. Does that open up and then open those up, or nope? That just opens up on its own. It's just that this. So what we have here is kind of like with our snow speeders. We have air brakes. And we have some struts here. So these struts were meant to kind of fold this up a little bit. So that when they're parked, you could actually fold the wings up and take up less room. Same ideas that we use on ships or on fighter aircraft on aircraft carriers today. Pretty much every country has something similar to that to say, hey, room is a commodity when we're on a ship or whatever. So if we can have this instead of taking up all this room, if we can fold those wings up some, that helps save a lot of room. And of course we have the landing gear here. We should. Nope. That's not landing gear. So here I'm thinking it is. Looks like it should be landing gear, but it just doesn't seem. Nope. It's like it's extra little engine intakes or something like that, but maybe for something here. It snaps together here. So really it is just this, and it kind of sits on here. But I could swear this is supposed to have landing gear that comes down. I guess I'm just wrong on this one. Or I'm trying to do it incorrectly. But looking at this piece, this looks like it's all molded in together. So it must just be how that is. And being a simple toy, there's nothing wrong with it just sitting down there like that. So, but I know on my Lego one, it does have landing gear in the back, so it sits just a little above. But I don't think that the wings fold up on that either. The original idea and design on this, from my memory, was these wings were supposed to fold up so it could take less room, or take up less room here. But that was our E-Wing. And it was a nice idea, and the fact that it was brought up in the novels, and then we made it into a ship from the expanded universe. Because it was a cheaper alternative than making the old X-Wings. And then even the X-Wings just kept going on. The T-65s and the T-65 Stealth and whatever else that they had come up with along the way. So, alright, so this is me kind of post having done the regular video here. I'm going to try and get this edited in as best I can. So however this works out, I apologize. So what I have here, and I talked about this and I kind of forgot about them. I have 2 of the Battlestar Galactica fighters, and I want to say I got these from a game store, like a video game store that they had them out there or whatever. And I don't remember who did these. I'm just drawing blanks, but it was all done to the same scale as the other ones. So I know that I can open this up, and we do have a more Battlestar Galactica looking figure. And this one, of course, being all beat up, and this one looking very kind of fresh and new. But the figure is the same either way. Now, I know this is Battlestar Galactica, and bear with me on this one because I picked these up for Star Wars. Now, the reason why I picked these up for Star Wars is they have in the expanded universe what's called the T-Wing. And oddly enough, the T-Wing almost looks exactly like your Battlestar Galactica Viper. So that was the reason why I had picked these up, because it's another iconic ship, but the fact that in Star Wars they have a ship that looks exactly like the Viper. So I had picked these up. And I do have, like I said, I have 2 of them. One's looking very beat up and a little worse for wear, like it's gone through quite a dickens of a day, and the other one looks like it's just kind of rolling off the production line and just flown in for the first time. So, but I did want to kind of show you this. I mean, I don't have landing gear that actually pick up, and I mean, they come out, but they don't fold up or anything. So I don't, like I said, I don't know who did these. I can't remember any of that. Outside of the cockpit opening, there was nothing else here. And then this kind of, I got the one to pop out, but the other one doesn't really want to pop out, and I'm not really going to force it too much. I'll just leave it be. And even on the bottom here, it looks like there's a different kind of strut or whatever to kind of hold that up, but I don't even know where that is. So it's been so many years, and you can see that in here too, and that these don't really want to come out. So, and I'm not going to really force them to, but I almost forgot to mention about these. And the reason why I got them is if you can find, you can find all the old West End Games, Star Wars role-playing game books, which they really helped flush out a lot of the universe that George Lucas had created. He came up with the characters and stuff like that. They came up with the species of, who's what and everything, what the planets were supposed to be like and all that. But the fact that they came out with a ship that was called the T-Wing that looked almost like the Colonial Viper was pretty interesting. So when I had seen these, I was like, I got to pick those up, because I think I even had the characters running T-Wings because they were dirt cheap for fighters. And the backstory was the seat was so terrible, people had a hard time sitting in there for like 2 hours. Because the seat was just so uncomfortable, no padding, it was just crummy. It was a basic fighter, got the job done, but nobody was happy ever being in the thing. And it's funny when you get stories like that added into this stuff. It is always fun and exciting. But something I almost forgot to throw in, I did want to make sure I got it in here, so here we are. Again, thank you so very much for sitting around the pool table with me. Thanks for spending the time. I always enjoy having everybody around. I'll see you in the next video. Hope you're having a wonderful day.